Every man thinks he understands attraction until he meets the woman who sees right through him. She's not impressed by the car, the suit, or the clever words he rehearsed in front of a mirror. She doesn't care about the dinner reservations, the smooth charm, or the confident laugh he practiced with his friends. She looks at him once, senses everything, and within seconds knows the truth he's spent years trying to hide. Whether he stands on his own, or whether he bends to be chosen. That's the moment every man faces when what he's been told about attraction crumbles. Because the truth is, women don't fall for the surface. They fall for the substance beneath it. And that substance has nothing to do with wealth, looks, or wit. It has everything to do with boundaries, with a man's ability to protect his time, his energy, and his self-respect without apology. It's not the man who speaks the most who wins her attention. It's the man who doesn't need to speak at all. It's not the man who runs toward her who stays in her memory. It's the one who moves with purpose, whose presence already feels full before she ever enters the picture. But most men never get there. They grow up believing attraction is about effort. They're told, be nice, be attentive, show her you care. So they give and give, texts, compliments, favors, validation, until they've given away everything that once made them magnetic. And when it fades, they're left asking the same tired question, what did I do wrong? They remember every late-night call they answered, every time they canceled plans, every moment they swallowed their frustration to keep the peace. They remember giving her everything, and they still lost her. The pain of that loss is quiet but sharp. It doesn't just wound their pride, it wounds their sense of worth. They start to believe something's broken inside them, that being kind, being patient, being good was a mistake. But it wasn't. The mistake wasn't their goodness, it was their lack of gravity. Because attraction doesn't grow from being endlessly available, it grows from presence. From the kind of energy that says, I know who I am, I know what I value, and I will not betray myself to be chosen. Boundaries are the invisible force that separate the man she forgets from the man she can't stop thinking about. They don't shout, they hum. They don't chase, they command. They don't need to impress, because they already express power through stillness, through calm, through the quiet certainty that says, I am not for everyone. And that's exactly why I'm valuable. Most men fail because they chase approval. They believe love is earned through sacrifice, not standards. They confuse tolerance for kindness, silence for peace, comfort for connection. They think surrendering their boundaries will make her stay, but it only teaches her to leave sooner. A woman doesn't want a man who makes her his purpose. She wants a man who already has one. She doesn't want to lead the dance. She wants to feel the rhythm of a man who moves with intention. When you lose your direction, she loses her respect. When you stand your ground, she feels your strength. And that's when attraction begins to deepen, not because you're trying, but because you're centered. So what creates that center? What turns a man from reactive to unshakable? It's not charm, it's not appearance, it's not luck, it's discipline, internal boundaries that separate emotion from principle, desire from need, impulse from integrity. Over the centuries, the Stoics called it self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all understood that a man who cannot govern himself will be governed by everything around him. The same rule applies to attraction. If you can't control your need for validation, you'll spend your life chasing approval from those who don't even respect you. But when you master your boundaries, you become something rare, a man who radiates composure in a world addicted to chaos. Because real attraction isn't born from effort, it's born from energy, and energy follows focus. A man without boundaries is scattered, restless, anxious. A man with them is calm, deliberate, magnetic. He doesn't need to prove himself. His life already proves it. He doesn't seek attention. Attention naturally follows him. That's why in this message we're not talking about tricks, pickup tactics, or psychological games. We're talking about 6 unbreakable principles, 6 Stoic boundaries that define the way high-value men move, think, and live. They're not about control. They're about clarity. They're not about rejection. They're about respect. Each one of them flips the script, turning the desperate, apologetic, approval-seeking man into one who leads, one who commands, one who quietly captivates without trying. You'll see why the first boundary, the boundary of scarcity, proves that your availability is your greatest weakness when it's unlimited. You'll learn how the power of no reshapes the way people see you, why calm confrontation earns respect faster than anger ever will, how silence and mystery create more attraction than endless words, and why mission before woman isn't cold, it's freedom. These are not dating strategies, they're life strategies. Because the truth is, attraction is just a mirror. It reflects the relationship you have with yourself. When you lack discipline, you attract chaos. When you lose your standards, you attract disrespect. But when you live with boundaries, you attract everything that aligns with your strength. So if you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or underappreciated, understand this. It's not because you're not enough. It's because you've given too much to people who didn't earn it. Your time, your attention, your energy, these are currencies of power. The more you spend them without purpose, the less they're worth. But the moment you start protecting them, everything changes. People treat you differently. Women respond differently. You stop being the man who waits to be chosen and become the man who chooses where to invest himself. That's what these 6 Stoic boundaries are about. Learning to protect your peace, to preserve your presence, and to project the quiet power of a man who cannot be shaken. So stay until the end, because this isn't just about women. It's about mastering yourself, the kind of mastery that builds quiet, unshakable power. Have you ever noticed that the more available you are to a woman, the less she seems to value your presence? It's one of life's silent paradoxes. The harder you try to prove your worth, the faster your value seems to fade. You text first, you reply fast, you drop plans to see her, you rearrange your day to match hers, and then you wonder why she suddenly feels distant. The answer is brutal but simple. Availability kills attraction. It's not because women are cruel or manipulative. It's because human nature is wired to value what's rare. What is easily obtained is rarely respected, and what's always within reach eventually loses its shine. Think about it. Diamonds aren't valuable because they're shiny. Glass can shine too. Diamonds are valuable because they're scarce, hard to find, and even harder to earn. The same principle applies to you. When your time, your attention, and your presence are constantly available, they lose their weight. But when they are protected, when they are earned, they become priceless. When a man makes himself available 24/7, he's unknowingly sending a silent message. My life revolves around you. My world stops when you call. And while that may sound romantic in movies, in reality, it signals dependency, not strength. Attraction doesn't grow out of need. It grows out of respect. A man who constantly orbits around a woman like a satellite communicates that he has no gravity of his own, no center, no mission, no direction, and nothing is less attractive than a man who has lost his center. Let's be honest, women don't fall for men who worship them. They fall for men who inspire them. They fall for the man whose presence feels earned, not given. The man whose time feels sacred. The man whose attention is not a prize to be claimed, but a privilege to be respected. That's what we call the boundary of scarcity. It's not a game or a manipulation tactic. It's a mindset. It's understanding that your time and energy are limited, and that what's limited becomes valuable. Scarcity doesn't mean ignoring her, acting cold, or pretending to be busy. It means choosing where your energy flows. It's the art of being intentional, not desperate, not reactive, but selective. Consider Daniel. He was the kind of man everyone liked. Polite, reliable, always there when needed. If a woman texted him, he replied instantly. If she wanted to meet, he dropped everything. If she called at midnight, he answered without hesitation. He believed he was doing everything right, showing care, being dependable, proving he was different from the rest. But over time, something strange kept happening. The women he dated lost interest. They stopped initiating. They became colder. One by one, they disappeared. At first, Daniel blamed them. He thought, maybe women just don't appreciate good men anymore. But deep down, he knew something else was off. Then one day, after another disappointing conversation that ended with, "You're such a nice guy, but..." he finally saw the truth. He wasn't being rejected for being nice. He was being rejected for being too available. So Daniel made a decision. He would stop giving his time so cheaply. He didn't become rude or distant. He became deliberate. He focused on his work. He trained harder at the gym. He went out with friends, pursued his passions, and stopped checking his phone every 10 minutes. When a woman texted, he replied when he was free, not the moment the message came in. When someone wanted to meet, he checked his schedule. If it didn't fit, he said no. And something shifted. The next time he dated, the energy was completely different. Women started to chase him. They texted first. They leaned in. They wondered what made him so calm, so grounded, so hard to get. Not because he was playing a role, but because he was living with purpose. That's the essence of the boundary of scarcity. When your time becomes rare, it becomes desired. When your attention is protected, it becomes valuable. When your life is full of goals, discipline, movement, she doesn't feel neglected. She feels intrigued. She begins to ask, where do I fit in his world, instead of assuming she already owns it? And that curiosity is magnetic. It's the quiet tension that keeps attraction alive. Because paradoxically, the less you chase her, the more she chases you. The less you explain yourself, the more she wonders about you. Now let's be clear. Scarcity isn't about neglect or arrogance. It's about awareness. It's not about pretending to be busy when you're not. It's about actually building a life that demands your focus. It's not about withholding affection. It's about offering it with intention. You don't owe your time to anyone who hasn't earned it. You choose to share it with those who respect it. The Stoics understood this principle deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Think about that for a moment. If you truly accepted that your time on this earth could end today, would you still waste it waiting for replies, chasing validation, or bending your schedule to fit someone else's whims? Or would you protect your time like a sacred currency, spending it only on what truly aligns with your purpose? When you live with that awareness, your entire energy changes. You stop reacting to every message. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to be everywhere for everyone. Instead, you start choosing your moments. You give your presence sparingly, and when you do, it carries power. That's what scarcity does. It transforms your energy from cheap to cherished. It teaches others that your time is not a commodity. It's an investment. And once you start living this way, people feel it. They sense your self-respect before you ever speak it. So ask yourself, how often do you give your time away too easily? How often do you trade your mission for momentary comfort? Every time you do, you teach the world to treat you as optional. But the moment you reclaim your focus, your direction, your purpose, you stop being optional. You become essential. Scarcity, at its core, is not about coldness. It's about clarity. It's not about being unreachable. It's about being intentional. When your life has purpose, your attention becomes gold, and gold doesn't chase, it attracts. So protect your time, guard your energy, build a life so full that when you finally give someone a piece of your attention, they feel it. Because true scarcity isn't about absence, it's about presence that means something. There's a single word that separates men who command respect from those who quietly lose it. And that word is no. Most men are terrified of it. They fear it'll make them look cold, unkind, or difficult. So they live trapped in the comfort of yes, saying it to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to hold on to affection that was never truly theirs. But every unnecessary yes comes with a cost. It tells the world that your time, your priorities, your self-respect can be negotiated. And nothing kills attraction faster than a man who can't stand on his own decision. Saying no is not about rejection. It's about identity. It's about self-respect. It's the moment you tell yourself, my time matters. My focus matters. My word means something. When a man has no boundaries, every yes he gives weakens him. When he says yes to everything, he slowly disappears into everyone else's expectations. Women don't lose interest when you say no. They lose interest when they sense weakness behind your yes. Because they can feel it. That subtle hesitation in your tone. That quiet panic in your eyes when you agree to something you don't want to do. It's not what you say that turns them off. It's what your energy reveals. You're saying, "I'll do whatever it takes to keep your approval." And in that moment, attraction dies. Not because you refuse to please her, but because you refuse to lead yourself. A woman can't trust a man who can't say no. She may enjoy his compliance at first, but eventually she'll resent it. Because behind every people-pleasing man is a silent resentment waiting to explode. When you live in fear of disappointing others, you end up disappointing yourself instead. Let's look at Alex, a man who spent most of his life trapped in the prison of politeness. Alex said yes to everything. If a woman wanted to meet, he'd cancel his plans. If she called late, he'd answer no matter how tired he was. If she needed a favor, he'd drop everything, even when it cost him his focus, his rest, his goals. He thought his willingness to accommodate made him dependable, even admirable. But over time, something kept happening. The more he gave, the less they valued it. Women smiled, thanked him, appreciated the effort, and slowly pulled away. They never disrespected him directly, but their interest faded. And Alex couldn't understand why. He was doing everything right, being available, kind, consistent. But what he didn't realize was that his constant yes had stripped away the very tension that fuels desire. He had no edge, no limit, no line that said, "This is where I stand." One night, after yet another short-lived connection ended with the familiar, "You're a great guy, but I just don't feel it," Alex reached his breaking point. For the first time, he stopped blaming women and started asking himself a harder question. Why do I keep abandoning myself just to be liked? From that moment, he made a vow. No more apologies for honoring his priorities. The next time a woman asked him to skip his gym session to hang out, he smiled and said, "I'll see you after my workout." No excuses, no long explanation, just truth. She paused, a little surprised, but instead of pulling away, she leaned in. There was something new in his energy, calm certainty. And that changed everything. That night, Alex learned what most men never do. Saying no doesn't repel the right woman. It attracts her, because she doesn't want a man who bends for approval. She wants a man who bends for nothing but principle. You see, no isn't about defiance. It's about direction. It's the word that builds your spine, defines your standard, and reminds you that you are the gatekeeper of your own life. A man without no is like a house without doors. Anyone can walk in, rearrange things, and leave whenever they please. But a man who can calmly say no builds walls that protect his peace and doors that open only with intention. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus wrote, "No person is free who is not master of himself. A man who cannot refuse is a man owned by the world, by pressure, by guilt, by the approval of others." Freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about having the strength to resist what doesn't serve you. And no is the word that grants that freedom. It's the guardrail that keeps your focus intact, your energy aligned, your dignity unshaken. But the power of no isn't just in the word itself. It's in the way you deliver it. Most men say no with guilt or anger, turning a boundary into an argument. But true strength doesn't need volume. It needs composure. The most powerful no is calm, direct, and unapologetic. It doesn't demand understanding. It commands respect. Picture this. She asks you to change your plans at the last minute, and you respond, "Can't tonight. Already have something I need to finish." Then you move on. No explanation, no tension. She might not admit it, but that moment of certainty shifts something inside her. Because deep down, she feels safe around a man who won't betray his priorities to win hers. That's the paradox of attraction. The same no that makes weak men anxious makes strong men magnetic. Because confidence isn't built on agreement, it's built on conviction. Every time you stand firm, you remind yourself that your time, your peace, and your purpose are not negotiable. When you say yes to everything, you dilute your value. When you start saying no to what doesn't align, you amplify it, and the world begins to treat you accordingly. You'll notice it in subtle ways. People ask less of you, interrupt you less, respect you more. And women, The ones who used to test your boundaries will start admiring them. Learning to say no isn't a small act. It's an initiation. The moment you stop chasing harmony and start creating respect. Because peace without boundaries isn't peace. It's submission. So, start small. Say no when something doesn't feel right. Say no when your gut tightens. Say no when saying yes means betraying your focus. Each time you do, you'll feel your spine straighten, your voice deepen, your presence sharpen. And remember, no doesn't close doors that matter. It filters out the noise that never did. If this truth hits home, take it as your call to rise, to start living with higher standards, not softer excuses. Respect rarely disappears all at once. It dies in small moments, quiet, almost invisible ones. A sarcastic jab about your job, an eye roll when you speak, a playful, just kidding that cuts deeper than she admits, a dismissive tone when you're making a point. These aren't explosions of disrespect. They're micro cracks in the foundation of how she sees you. And if you let them slide long enough, one day you'll wake up realizing you've lost not only her respect, but your own. This is what I call the boundary of respect. It's the invisible line that separates calm strength from quiet submission. Most men never learn to draw it. They think staying silent makes them easygoing, mature, or non-confrontational. But silence in the face of disrespect doesn't make you stoic. It makes you small. Every time you ignore a subtle insult, every time you laugh off something that hurt, every time you tell yourself, it's not a big deal, you teach the world how to treat you. And here's the harsh truth. If you don't respect yourself enough to enforce your boundaries, no one else will. But the other extreme is just as destructive. Some men finally snap after years of holding it in. They explode, they yell, accuse, or try to put her in her place. And in that instant, they lose what little power they had left. Because anger is still a form of control, just turned inside out. You can't earn respect by losing composure. You can't command it by demanding it. The Stoics understood this balance long before modern psychology named it. They taught that emotional control isn't repression, it's precision. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That means you don't meet disrespect with rage. You don't mirror the behavior you despise. You hold your center, look the moment in the eye, and address it with calm authority. That's what calm confrontation is. A quiet line in the sand that says, I won't accept being disrespected, not from anyone. Imagine this. You're at a dinner with friends. She makes a joke at your expense, something subtle but sharp. Most men either laugh awkwardly or go silent, pretending it doesn't sting. But the energy shifts. Everyone notices it. And in her subconscious, she feels it too. That you've just told her, it's okay to treat me this way. Now imagine the same situation handled differently. You meet her eyes, steady and unshaken, and say, "Hey, I don't let people talk to me like that." No anger, no sarcasm, just calm truth. The room goes quiet for a moment. You haven't embarrassed her. You've reminded her, and yourself, of where the line is. That's the power of presence, because contrary to what weak men believe, confrontation doesn't kill attraction, it deepens it. It shows certainty. It tells her, this man won't be controlled by fear or emotion. And ironically, that's the kind of man she feels safe with. Let's take Daniel again. A different Daniel this time. He was dating a woman who had a habit of making jokes about his career. "You don't make as much as my ex," she'd tease, brushing it off with a laugh. The first few times, Daniel ignored it. He told himself not to overreact, that she didn't mean it, that staying calm meant staying strong. But each time she said it, something inside him sank lower. He felt smaller, and she could feel it too. Eventually, the distance between them became obvious. She seemed colder, more detached, almost irritated by his presence. That's the silent decay of respect. It doesn't happen in arguments. It happens in small, unspoken moments of tolerance. Then one evening, when she made the same joke again, Daniel didn't laugh. He didn't raise his voice either. He simply looked at her, steady and calm, and said, "Don't ever compare me to another man. That's not something I tolerate." Silence. She blinked, caught off guard, expecting an argument that never came. Instead, she felt something different. a shift in the energy between them. For the first time, she saw him not as the agreeable man who would bend for peace, but as a man with standards. From that night forward, the jokes stopped. The sarcasm vanished. Her tone softened. Because respect, once reestablished through calm strength, transforms everything. That's the paradox of this boundary. When enforced with calm authority, it doesn't create distance, it builds trust. Because a woman doesn't want to lead the emotional dynamic. She wants to trust that you can hold it. And she can only relax into her femininity when she feels your frame is solid enough not to be shaken by teasing, pressure, or disrespect. But this boundary doesn't apply only to women. It applies to life. Every person you meet, colleagues, friends, strangers, will test, consciously or not, how you value yourself. If you let small slights pass unchecked, you invite bigger ones. But if you respond with composure, you train the world to treat you with respect. So how do you practice calm confrontation? First, notice the micro disrespect. Don't gaslight yourself into ignoring it. If something feels off, it probably is. Second, stay composed. The goal isn't to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself steady. Third, be direct, not dramatic. Short, clear statements carry more power than long lectures. That doesn't work for me. I don't play like that. Don't talk to me that way. Fourth, set the tone early. The longer you wait to assert a boundary, the harder it becomes. And finally, follow through. If someone continues to disrespect you, create distance. A man who enforces boundaries with action doesn't need to explain them twice. Because here's the truth. The way you handle disrespect sets the tone for every relationship in your life. Let it slide, and people will keep testing you. React with anger, and they'll see you as unstable. Respond with calm authority, and they'll remember never to cross you again. Respect doesn't come from volume. It comes from presence. From the quiet conviction that you will never trade your dignity for comfort. From the strength to confront calmly, not because you're angry, but because you value yourself too much to stay silent. That's the real lesson of the Stoics. That composure is the highest form of power. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight to win. You simply stand your ground, speak your truth, and let your calm do the talking. Because in the end, calm is not weakness. Calm is dominance. And in a world full of noise, silence delivered with certainty is the loudest statement a man can make. Every woman will test your center before she ever trusts your depth. It won't happen through deep conversations or long nights spent sharing dreams. It happens in smaller moments. Subtle, unplanned, often disguised as something meaningless. A teasing remark, a sarcastic comment, a playful challenge that feels sharper than it should. These are not accidents. They're instinct. Every woman, consciously or not, tests the stability of a man's emotional core. Not because she wants to hurt him, but because she wants to feel him. His steadiness, his composure, his ability to stand firm when life applies pressure. Her tests are not about manipulation, they're about calibration. She's trying to find out, can I trust this man to stay grounded when things get hard? Or will he collapse like everyone else? Because if she can shake you with a few words, she knows the world will break you with a storm. The truth is, women don't test you to destroy you. They test you to feel your strength. They want to know that behind your calm eyes and steady tone, there's a man who cannot be moved by chaos. The moment you prove that, something inside her relaxes. She stops needing to lead. She stops needing to challenge. Because she's finally met a man whose presence feels safe enough for her to be soft. But most men fail these tests instantly. Some get defensive, snapping back with, "What do you mean by that?" Some get angry, raising their voice, trying to dominate the moment. And others retreat into silence, sulking or shutting down, withdrawing from the conversation like a wounded boy. All three reactions come from the same place: insecurity. They reveal that your emotional balance depends on how someone else treats you. That's not strength. That's fragility, dressed as pride. A man who is centered doesn't need to defend his worth. He knows who he is. He doesn't let sarcasm or teasing dictate his mood, because he understands that these small moments are not threats, they're opportunities. opportunities to demonstrate something most men never master: emotional control. When she teases you, the worst thing you can do is overreact. The best thing you can do is breathe, hold your posture, and flip the frame. Don't fight the energy, redirect it. Imagine this. She looks at you and says, "You're really going to wear that?" Most men get self-conscious, immediately second-guessing their outfit or trying to joke their way out. But the Stoic man smiles slightly and says, "Of course. Why, are you worried I'll outshine you?" The tension dissolves instantly. You've taken her challenge and turned it into playful confidence. You didn't attack, you didn't defend, you led the energy instead of reacting to it. That's emotional jujitsu. Or maybe she says, "You're so serious all the time." The reactive man argues, "I'm not serious," or laughs nervously trying to prove otherwise. The Stoic man smirks and says, "Someone has to balance out your chaos." Same moment, two different outcomes. One man chases approval, the other commands attraction. This isn't arrogance, it's composure. It's understanding that her teasing isn't a declaration of war. It's a mirror reflecting your own stability. Because a woman's test doesn't define her, it defines you. Let's talk about Adam. Adam was confident at first, strong, disciplined, in control. But every time he was with his girlfriend, she teased him in front of friends. Small comments about his work, his habits, his routines. At first he tried to ignore it. Then one night she said, "Do you even know how to relax? You're always so uptight." He snapped. "Why would you even say that?" he barked, his voice sharp, his face tense. The room went quiet. She rolled her eyes, mumbled, "I was just kidding," and walked away. That night, Adam realized he'd lost control, not of her, but of himself. He thought staying silent was strength, and when that didn't work, he thought fighting back would prove power. Both failed, because real strength isn't reactive, it's responsive. The next time it happened, he did something different. She teased him again. "Wow, working late again? Do you ever take a break?" He paused, leaned back, smiled, and said, "Yeah, I'm taking one right now actually. You're part of it." The whole table laughed, including her. But more importantly, something shifted. She looked at him differently, less like someone she could push, and more like someone she could respect. That's the calm test. It's not about ignoring the challenge, it's about handling it without losing yourself. Because calmness is not weakness, it's control. The moment you stay calm when most men would react, you rise above the emotional noise that consumes them. You show that you are not controlled by the outside world, but by your inner world. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of Stoic masculinity. You don't control what she says, what she feels, or what she does. You control how you respond. You control whether you let the moment pull you off balance, or whether you use it to display your composure. And when you control your response, you control the frame. Women can feel that frame instantly. It's in the way you breathe, the way you hold eye contact, the way your tone never wavers. It tells her, "You can challenge me, but you can't move me." That's what creates polarity, the irresistible dance between her energy and your stillness. Because the calm test isn't really about her at all. It's about you. It's about whether you can stay centered when emotion, chaos, or ego try to pull you out of your lane. It's about whether you can be unmoved without being unkind, assertive without being aggressive. It's about learning to stand still in the storm and realizing that storms lose their power when they can't move you. So start small. The next time someone teases you, pause before reacting. Breathe once before speaking. Let silence do half the work. If you feel the urge to defend yourself, don't. Smile instead. If you feel anger rising, let it pass before you respond. And when you do speak, keep it short, confident, and even playful. Because the real test isn't about passing her trials, it's about mastering your mind. The man who passes the calm test doesn't do it to impress her. He does it because he refuses to be enslaved by emotion. And that kind of discipline doesn't just attract women, it commands life itself. That's what we practice every day: discipline, calm, and strength. Not to impress, but to master ourselves. That is the Stoic way. Most men talk too much, not because they love conversation, but because they fear silence. They fill every pause with justification, every question with an explanation, every doubt with words meant to prove their worth. They don't realize that the more they speak, the less power their voice carries. Because behind all that talking hides the quiet truth. When you over-explain, you're not communicating, you're seeking approval. A man who constantly explains himself is saying one thing beneath the surface. Please understand me. Please like me. Please don't misjudge me. He believes that if he can say the right thing, clarify enough, or share every detail, people will finally see his value. But they won't. Because value isn't something you explain, it's something you embody. And that's where most men lose authority. They think clarity is confidence when in reality, mystery is magnetic. It's the space between words, the pause between thoughts, that makes people lean in. Think about the men who hold your attention effortlessly. The ones who speak slowly, deliberately, saying less, but meaning more. Their silence makes their presence heavier. You can feel it before they speak. That's not charisma, that's composure. That's a man who doesn't chase understanding. He commands it. Now think of its opposite. The man who can't stop talking, who explains every decision, justifies every choice, apologizes before he's even done anything wrong. His words are filled with nervous energy, and the more he talks, the less he's heard. When a man over-explains, he drains the mystery that makes him interesting. And mystery is not about manipulation. It's about restraint, the ability to hold something back. In a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, the man who remains composed, measured, and selective with his words becomes unforgettable. He's not hiding, he's leading, because leadership doesn't argue, it acts. Picture this. A woman asks why you can't meet tonight. Most men panic. I'm so sorry, I had a long day at work. I'm tired, but maybe if I rest I'll feel better, and we can meet later. It sounds polite. It sounds considerate. But the energy behind it is weak. Now imagine the alternative. Can't tonight. Let's plan something later this week. 5 words. Calm, clear, final. The first man seeks approval. The second commands respect. That's the power of silence. It creates gravity. It forces people to fill in the blanks with their imagination. And imagination always paints you as larger, stronger, more intriguing than any explanation ever could. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology tried to define it. Epictetus wrote, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." In other words, stop talking about who you are. Start showing it. A man's actions are his loudest words. His composure, his consistency, his discipline, these communicate more about him than endless conversations ever could. And that brings us to Michael. Michael was a kind man, articulate, thoughtful, reliable. But he had one flaw. He explained himself too much. If his girlfriend questioned his decisions, he'd spiral into justification. When she asked why he couldn't hang out, he'd text long messages. "I'm sorry, I've just been exhausted. Work has been crazy. I don't want you to think I don't care." He meant well, but his over-explaining made him sound uncertain. Every extra word diluted his authority. And over time, his girlfriend started losing respect. She stopped listening, started interrupting, and eventually started leading the relationship, because Michael had given her the frame without realizing it. One day, after yet another exhausting conversation filled with explanations, something clicked. He realized he wasn't explaining to connect. He was explaining to be accepted, so he made a change. The next time she asked him to skip his workout to see her, he simply said, "I'll see you after the gym." No apologies, no justification, just calm truth. For a moment she stared at him, surprised. Then she smiled, because for the first time, she could feel his certainty. From that day on, their dynamic shifted. She started listening again. She started respecting his space, his priorities, his time. All because he stopped chasing her approval with words and started communicating through action. That's the paradox most men never understand. Silence doesn't push people away. It pulls the right ones closer. When you stop talking to prove yourself, your presence begins to speak for you. Your eyes, your tone, your posture. They carry a quiet authority that can't be faked. Because a man who is truly grounded doesn't need to convince anyone of who he is. His life already does it for him. This doesn't mean you become distant or cold. Silence is not absence, it's depth. It's knowing when to speak and when to let your energy do the talking. It's understanding that you don't need to fill every silence with words to keep someone interested. You just need to be present enough that the silence itself feels alive. So next time you feel the urge to justify yourself, don't. Next time you're tempted to explain every choice, stop. Say less. Mean more. Let your actions tell the story. Because silence backed by certainty communicates more than any explanation ever could. Remember this. Women, and the world, are drawn to men whose words carry weight. And words only carry weight when they're rare. Don't explain your value. Live it. Don't prove your worth. Embody it. Because the man who can sit comfortably in silence, who doesn't need to fill the air with noise, is the man everyone listens to when he finally decides to speak. Silence, then, is not coldness. It's control. It's the mark of a man who's no longer chasing attention but commanding it. And when you master that, you stop being the man who needs to be heard and become the man who doesn't have to speak to be understood. There's a silent tragedy that breaks more men than rejection ever could. It's the moment they forget their mission. They meet a woman, feel the spark, and slowly, without even realizing it, they begin to orbit around her. Their goals go on pause. Their routines fade. Their direction blurs. Their once focused energy becomes scattered, consumed by a constant need for validation. At first, she feels flattered by the attention. She enjoys being desired, admired, prioritized. But soon, something inside her shifts. She feels the gravity of his world collapsing into hers, and instead of feeling chosen, she feels pressure. Because deep down, no woman wants to be the center of a man's life. She wants to be a part of a man's life that already has a center. That's the essence of this boundary. Mission before woman. It's not about neglect. It's not about coldness. It's about alignment. Because she doesn't want to be your mission, she wants to join it. The moment your purpose fades, so does your power. A man without direction might still be loved, but he will never be respected. And respect is the foundation of attraction. You can't inspire a woman if you've abandoned the very thing that made you magnetic in the first place. Your sense of purpose. Think of yourself as a captain steering a ship. Your mission is the compass, the guiding star that keeps you moving toward meaning. Without it, you drift, lost, reactive, tossed by every emotional wave. When you make her the destination instead of a companion on the journey, you lose control of the wheel. You surrender leadership to emotion, and soon, your ship becomes hers to steer. But a captain with a destination, clear, unwavering, unshaken, creates safety. A woman feels secure in the presence of a man who knows where he's going because his direction gives her peace. She doesn't have to lead, fix, or guide him. She can finally relax and trust the flow. Now think of David. David was ambitious. He had a vision for his future, a business he was building, a purpose that woke him before sunrise. Then he met Anna, smart, beautiful, full of life. At first, he balanced both, his mission and his relationship. But slowly, things changed. He started skipping meetings to spend more time with her. Workouts turned into late-night calls. Plans became flexible. Boundaries blurred. Anna loved him. But as the weeks passed, she began to feel something different. The man she admired for his drive was fading. His passion wasn't burning anymore. It was flickering. He became hesitant, softer, unsure. And what once drew her in, his focus, his ambition, his fire, started to vanish. She couldn't explain it, but her attraction began to fade too. One night, after yet another argument about how he was always distracted, David realized something painful. She wasn't pushing him away because he worked too much. She was pulling away because he'd stopped working for himself. He had traded his mission for her validation, and in doing so, he had lost both. So he made a choice. He refocused his life. He rebuilt his schedule, recommitted to his craft, and started living with discipline again. He didn't ignore Anna. He simply stopped orbiting her. His texts became intentional, his presence more grounded, his energy more alive. And something unexpected happened. She came back. Not because he begged, but because she could once again feel the man she respected. The man with direction, the man with gravity. That's the paradox of attraction. When you make a woman your mission, she loses interest. When you make your mission your priority, she becomes interested in joining it. Because women are not drawn to men who need them. They're drawn to men who lead themselves. The Stoics understood this long before we put it into psychology. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." A man's ambitions are not just his goals, they are his essence. They determine his energy, his decisions, his sense of identity. When your ambitions shrink, so does your masculinity. When you stop chasing your mission, your confidence decays, and everything else, respect, attraction, momentum, follows. So what does it mean to live with mission first? It means your schedule reflects your values. You protect your routines the way others protect their comfort. You don't cancel the gym, your work, or your progress for temporary pleasure. You live in a way that reminds everyone, including yourself, that your purpose comes before your distractions. It means you speak with direction. You don't say, "I'll see if I can make it." You say, "I'll see you after I finish this." It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's showing that your time moves with intention, not impulse. And most importantly, it means you understand that relationships are not escapes from purpose. They are extensions of it. A woman can walk beside you, amplify your vision, support your discipline, but she cannot replace your mission. When you make her the purpose, you put a weight on her shoulders she was never meant to carry. High-value women know this instinctively. They don't want to lead. They want to trust. They don't want to save you. They want to believe in you. They don't want a man who lives for them. They want a man who lives for something greater. Because when your mission is strong, she doesn't feel neglected. She feels secure. She knows that even when you're apart, your direction doesn't change. And the beauty of living this way is that your mission doesn't just attract women. It attracts everything aligned with strength. Opportunities, partnerships, respect, fulfillment, all flow toward the man who walks with purpose. Because purpose radiates confidence, and confidence draws the world closer. But a man without purpose, he's like a ship without a rudder, moved by every current, crushed by every wave, and lost the moment the storm hits. So ask yourself honestly, have you built a life she can join? Or have you built a life that depends on her presence to feel meaningful? Because if your peace vanishes when she walks away, you were never in love. You were addicted to distraction. The truth is, purpose is the most powerful form of attraction. It's not something you show off. It's something you live. The man who wakes up early, protects his time, and moves with clarity doesn't need to chase attention. His energy speaks for him. His mission creates gravity. A woman doesn't fall for a man who abandons his purpose to love her. She falls for the man who loves his purpose so deeply that she feels lucky to walk beside it. And when you live like that, when your mission guides your steps, your boundaries define your time, and your energy flows with direction, you stop chasing validation. You start embodying value. Because at the end of the day, attraction is not about words, appearance, or tactics. It's about direction. A man with direction doesn't beg for connection. He creates it. He doesn't look for validation. He earns it. And he doesn't chase love. He attracts it naturally, through the steady pull of his purpose. Mission before woman, always. Because without your mission, you lose yourself. And the moment you lose yourself, you lose everything worth having. There comes a moment in every man's life when he looks in the mirror and asks himself a question few are brave enough to face. Am I living by my own standards, or am I still chasing someone else's approval? That question defines everything. Because the truth is, life doesn't break you all at once. It wears you down slowly, through compromises, through over-explanations, through 1,000 small moments when you choose comfort over conviction. And one day, You realize you've been living not as a man of purpose, but as a man of permission. But here's the good news. Every man can reclaim himself. You don't need anyone's validation to begin again. All you need is awareness and the courage to draw the line where your peace begins. That's what these Stoic boundaries are about. Not walls that isolate you, but frameworks that elevate you. Because at the heart of this message lie three principles that define a man's strength. Silence protects you. Boundaries define you. Mission elevates you. Silence protects you. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, silence becomes your greatest weapon. It shields you from emotional chaos, from reacting too fast, from wasting your breath on arguments that don't deserve your energy. The man who knows when to speak and when to stay quiet is not passive, he's precise. His stillness is not emptiness, it's strategy. His calm is not weakness, it's control. When you master silence, you become unpredictable, untouchable, and deeply respected. Because nothing is louder than a man who doesn't need to explain himself. Boundaries define you. Your standards are not rules to control others. They're reflections of the respect you have for yourself. Every no you speak builds your identity. Every yes you choose consciously, not fearfully, strengthens your presence. Boundaries tell the world, this is who I am. This is what I allow. This is what I refuse to compromise. Without them, you drift, blending into the expectations of others until you forget who you were meant to be. But with them, you stand tall, grounded, centered, unshakable. You become the kind of man whose life commands respect before he ever asks for it. Mission elevates you. Your mission is not just a goal, it's your North Star. It's the invisible force that turns motion into momentum, desire into discipline, dreams into direction. Without it, you wander, chasing distractions, chasing validation, chasing people who were never meant to lead you. But when you put your mission first, you rise. You create gravity. You attract everything aligned with your purpose and lose everything that was holding you back. A man on his mission doesn't beg for meaning. He builds it. These three principles, silence, boundaries, mission, form the trinity of masculine power. Together, they forge a presence that doesn't chase validation, doesn't crave attention, and doesn't break under pressure. They create the kind of man who moves through the world with calm certainty, the man people listen to when he speaks, the man women trust when they're near him, the man other men quietly aspire to become. Because Stoic strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It shows itself in how you carry your energy, in the way you enter a room, the way you stay composed when others panic, the way you hold your ground without ever raising your voice. True power doesn't shout, it radiates. But to live this way, you have to choose it. Every day, you have to wake up and remind yourself, I don't exist to be liked. I exist to live with integrity. You have to catch yourself when you start explaining too much, apologizing too quickly, giving too freely. You have to pause when you feel the urge to chase approval and ask, is this decision aligned with my purpose or am I betraying it to feel safe? That's the discipline of a Stoic warrior, the quiet courage to choose self-mastery over comfort, clarity over chaos, and peace over validation. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about directing it. It's not about avoiding connection, it's about creating it through authenticity, not need. Because at the end of the day, women, friends, and even the world itself don't follow men who chase. They follow men who lead, men who can stay still while others scramble, men who live by their values no matter the cost. And when you become that man, when you speak less and mean more, when you protect your time like gold, when your mission becomes your compass, everything changes. Respect finds you. Peace follows you. Love aligns with you. You no longer chase attention because your presence commands it. You no longer seek validation because your purpose provides it. You no longer fear loss because you finally realize that what's meant for a grounded man can never pass him by. So take a moment now, not to think, but to feel. Ask yourself, am I leading my life or am I waiting for someone to lead it for me? Am I protecting my energy or am I giving it away to people who never earned it? Am I living by principle or by permission? You already know the answers. And deep down you already know what kind of man you were born to become. Not one defined by others' approval, but by his own code. A man of silence, strength, and purpose. This is your moment to draw that line, to rebuild yourself from the inside out, to stop explaining, start embodying, to stop seeking, start becoming. Because the Stoic path isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's about choosing mastery over emotion, purpose over comfort, and presence over noise. So if this message woke something in you, subscribe and share it with a brother who needs this truth. Because the world doesn't need louder men. It needs calmer, stronger men living by the true Stoic way.